Before we begin, let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered what happens when the one person you're trying to run from becomes the only one you can't live without? Stay with me till the end, and if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. I stood at the edge of the aisle, my fingers digging into the fragile lace of my gown as if tearing it might somehow tear me free from this moment. My heart pounded loud enough to drown out the muffled whispers drifting through the old chapel. It smelled of cedar and something older, like regret soaked deep into the wood. The air felt heavy, pressing against my chest as I tried to breathe past the tightness in my throat. No one had asked me if I wanted to be here. No one had cared enough to ask. The guests, what few there were, sat scattered across the pews, their eyes sharp and curious, flicking toward me like I was some rare bird on display. None of them belonged to me. No friends, no family. Just strangers from his world, people in suits and silk who didn't know me, didn't care. And then there was him, Liam Mason. He stood by the altar, tall and severe in his black tailored suit. His posture was perfect, his expression unreadable. Like stone. Like something carved to be admired but never touched. His dark hair was slicked back, not a strand out of place. And those eyes, gray, almost silver under the dim lights, never once met mine. He didn't have to look. He didn't need to. He had already won. My father's words haunted me as I took my first hesitant step down the aisle. You have to do this, Emma. It's the only way to save your mother. The only way. I hated those words. Hated the way they cornered me, trapped me, left me standing here with my life unraveling like a thread pulled loose. I forced my feet to move, each step heavier than the last. The fabric of my gown brushed the old stone floor, a sound so soft yet deafening in my ears. I tried not to think about the promise I was about to make. I tried not to look at the man who would never love me. But my eyes betrayed me. For a split second, I looked up, and Liam turned, just slightly. Just enough for me to see the flicker of something cold, something detached in his eyes, as if I were a price he had paid. Nothing more. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. The priest's voice felt like static in the background, meaningless words filling a space that had never known warmth. My hands trembled as I clutched the bouquet, tighter, crushing the soft white petals. And then I saw it. A small drawer, half open, on the side table near the altar. I don't know what made me notice it, but my feet carried me there like I had no control over them. My heart hammered harder, faster, as I reached out and slid the drawer open a little further. Inside, folded carefully, was a letter. The paper had yellowed at the edges, the ink faded, but still legible. My mother's handwriting. I felt the air catch in my lungs. My mother had never spoken of Liam or his family. She had never mentioned the name Mason. But there it was, written at the top of the letter like a ghost pulling at my memory. To Michael Mason. Liam's last name. My knees weakened. I had to grip the edge of the table to keep myself upright. My mind spun as I tried to make sense of it. Why would my mother write to someone in his family? What did they have to do with us? With me? Before? I could read further. The priest cleared his throat loudly, snapping my attention back to the reality I couldn't escape. I shoved the letter into the folds of my gown, pressing it flat against my racing heart. I didn't understand it. Not yet. But I would. Somehow I would. Liam extended his hand toward me, cold and steady. His face didn't change. Not even when I placed my trembling fingers in his. Do you, Emma Blair, take Liam Mason to be your lawfully wedded husband? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. But I could hear my mother's voice, soft and frail from all those nights I sat by her bedside. Sometimes love is what you sacrifice, not what you keep. And so I whispered, the words I swore I'd never say. I do. Liam's response came just as quickly. I do. No hesitation. No feeling. The priest pronounced us husband and wife, but it sounded like a sentence, not a blessing. Liam didn't kiss me. He didn't even lean close. He simply turned, offering his arm like I was a stranger he'd been forced to escort out, of obligation. I placed my hand on his sleeve, feeling nothing but the chill beneath the fabric. As we walked down the aisle together, I glanced one last time at the drawer, at the empty space where the letter had been. Something wasn't right. Something had never been right. And as the chapel doors creaked open, the cold Boston night biting at my skin, I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. It started to rain the moment I crossed the iron gates of the Mason estate. The sky broke open without warning, as if even the heavens couldn't bear witness to what I had done. The gown weighed me down, the soaked fabric clinging to my legs as I ran down the narrow street, each breath tearing through my chest. My slippers, once delicate and white, were ruined, mud-splattered, slipping on the wet pavement with every desperate step. I didn't care. I just needed to get away. I didn't know where I was going. I hadn't thought that far. All I knew was that I couldn't stay. I couldn't wake up tomorrow in that house, in that life. So I ran. I ran past empty storefronts, past glowing streetlights flickering in the mist, until I reached the old bus station on the edge of town. The platform was deserted, save for the dim light buzzing overhead. I stood there, trembling, my arms wrapped tightly around myself as the rain continued to fall. The schedule board flickered to life, announcing the next bus wouldn't arrive for another 40 minutes. My heart sank. 40 minutes felt like a lifetime. I pressed my back against the cold metal bench, sinking down onto it, burying my face in my hands. I could still feel the weight of Liam's gaze on me, the way his arm had felt like iron beneath my touch as we walked down that aisle. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I didn't do either. I just sat there shivering, until I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, steady, deliberate. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I didn't dare look up. I didn't need to. I already knew. He was here. Liam. I felt him before I saw him. Felt the air shift. The weight of his presence closing in around me like a net I couldn't untangle. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing him to disappear. But when I finally lifted my head, he was standing just a few feet away. No umbrella. No coat. Just him. Drenched to the bone, water dripping from his dark hair, his white shirt clinging to his frame like a second skin. His tie hung loose around his neck, forgotten. His expression wasn't cold, it wasn't empty. It was something else entirely. For the first time since I'd met him, Liam Mason looked lost. My throat tightened as I pushed myself to my feet. Go home, I choked out, my voice shaking. Just leave me, alone. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, rain sliding down his face like tears he refused to shed. I took a step back, clutching the edges of my soaked gown. I said leave. Still, he stayed silent. But something in his jaw shifted like he was fighting himself. His hands clenched at his sides, shaking slightly, before he finally spoke. His voice low, raw, and nothing like I'd ever heard before. I don't need you to want me, Emma. The words hung in the air, heavier than the rain pounding the pavement. Liam swallowed hard, taking a hesitant step toward me. But I don't know how to live without you. It broke something in me. Not the anger, not the fear, but the lie I'd been telling myself. That he didn't care. That I didn't care. I shook my head, trying to stop the ache rising in my chest. You don't mean that. You can't mean that. But he nodded, his breath hitching, as his voice cracked. I wish I didn't. I turned on my heel, desperate to run again, But his hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not hard, not rough, just enough to stop me. "Please," he whispered, so softly I almost didn't hear it. "Over the rain." I wrenched my arm free, taking another step back. "You don't get to stand there and say that to me after everything. You can't just show up now and—" His grip tightened again. Not painful, not controlling. Desperate. I looked down at his hand on mine, then back up at him. That's when I saw it. He was trembling. Not from the cold. Not from anger. From something deeper. Something that scared him more than anything else ever could. Me. He took a shaky breath, his voice breaking again. "Come home with me. Please." I should have refused. I should have turned and walked away, left him standing there in the rain. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because the truth, the awful, terrifying truth, was that I didn't want to be alone. Either. Before I could stop myself, before I could second-guess what I already knew, I felt my body move toward him. Just one step. That's all it took. Liam's hand slid from my wrist to my fingers, threading them together like he was afraid to let go. I felt the air leave my lungs as he leaned in, his forehead nearly touching mine. "I'm not asking for forever," he whispered, voice shaking like he was breaking apart. "Just tonight." And without another word, he opened the door to the black car parked just behind him, and gently guided me inside. The car door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded louder than any slam. The air inside was thick, warm leather, and something else, something entirely him. Liam slid into the driver's seat without a word, rain still dripping from his hair, soaking through his shirt. Neither of us spoke as he started the engine. We didn't need to. I could feel it in every breath, in every glance he dared to steal, when he thought I wouldn't notice. The city blurred past the windows, lights stretching like golden veins in the night. My heart pounded louder than the hum of the tires on wet pavement. My hands trembled in my lap, clutching the soaked fabric of my dress. Why had I come back with him? I didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. When we pulled up to the old stone hotel overlooking the river, I almost asked why we weren't going back to the estate. But the words never left my lips. Liam climbed out first, circling the car to open my door like something out of a dream I never let myself have. The lobby was quiet, dimly lit with old brass lamps and dark wood paneling. The clerk didn't even lift his head as Liam led me toward the elevator, his hand hovering near the small of my back. Not touching, but close enough that my skin prickled with every step. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say something to break the silence tightening around us like a noose. But all I could. Here was the rain. The elevator doors slid shut behind us, sealing us in a world that felt too small, too heavy. I pressed my back against the cool metal wall, trying to keep distance between us, but the air seemed to crackle, pulling us closer with every breath. Liam ran a hand through his wet hair, droplets flicking onto his cheeks. He was trembling. Not from the cold, but from something deeper, something raw. When he finally turned to me, his voice was so soft I almost missed it. "I've been standing in the rain for over an hour, Emma." I swallowed hard, clutching the folds of my dress tighter. "You shouldn't have," I whispered. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, his jaw tightening like he was holding something back. "Maybe I shouldn't have done a lot of things," he murmured. The elevator chimed softly as the doors slid open to the top floor. Liam didn't move for a moment, just stood there, watching me like he was afraid I might vanish if he blinked. Then, with a shallow breath, he held out his hand. I stared at it, frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might shatter me. But I reached for him. God help me. I reached for him. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady, and he led me down the quiet hall to the farthest door. Room 514. He unlocked it with a single swipe of the key card, pushing it open with a gentle nudge of his shoulder. The room was dark, lit only by the faint glow of the city beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. I stepped inside first, my breath catching as the door clicked shut behind me. I could feel him standing there, watching me from the shadows. The rain outside had slowed to a soft patter against the glass, a quiet rhythm that matched the frantic beat of my heart. I turned, my voice shaking. "What do you want from me, Liam?" He took a step forward, closing the space between us inch by inch, until the air thickened with something I couldn't name. His voice was rough, almost broken. "Everything," he whispered. And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate. Acclaiming. Like he'd been holding back for too long and couldn't bear it another second. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer as his mouth devoured mine. I gasped, clutching his soaked shirt, feeling the tension snap between us like a live wire. He lifted me with ease, carrying me toward the bed, his breath ragged against my ear. "I need you to tell me to stop," he whispered. But I couldn't. Because for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't want to stop. He laid me down gently, his hands shaking as he traced the wet strands of hair from my face. His eyes searched mine, waiting, begging for something I couldn't give him with words. So I answered with my touch. I reached for him, pulling him down to me, letting the weight of him settle over me like a promise. And when he kissed me again, slower this time, my heart broke wide open. Because somewhere in the chaos, I realized I wanted him to claim me, not because I was trapped, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to be his. And for the first time, I saw it in his eyes. He wanted to be mine, too. I woke to the soft light of dawn pressing through the sheer curtains. For a moment, I didn't move. I just lay there, still and quiet, letting the weight of the night settle over me like a second skin. The air smelled faintly of rain and something warmer. His cologne, maybe, or the way his breath had curled against my skin hours ago when he whispered my name like a prayer. He hadn't meant to say out loud. I turned my head slowly, half afraid he'd be gone. But he wasn't. Liam sat on the edge of the bed, still shirtless, his broad back to me as he ran a hand through his dark hair, the muscles in his shoulders tensed with every breath, like he was fighting some silent war within himself. I pulled the sheet tighter around me, suddenly unsure of what I was supposed to do now. He hadn't left. That was the part I didn't understand. Men, like Liam Mason, didn't linger. They didn't wait. And yet, here he was. I cleared my throat softly, and he turned, his gray eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. There was something fragile in his expression, something unsteady that unsettled me more than all his coldness ever had. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his voice low and rough. "You can go if you want to." The words landed like a punch, knocking the breath from my lungs. But he didn't stop there. His jaw tightened as he swallowed hard, like every word cost him more than he could afford to give. "I won't stop you, Emma," he whispered, his eyes locked on mine. "But please don't." I felt the air catch in my throat, my heart pounding so loud it hurt. He looked down at his hands, clenching them into fists like he was trying to hold himself together. "I don't deserve to ask you for anything," he murmured, almost too soft to hear. "But if you stay, I swear I'll try to be the man you deserve. The man I deserve." Did I even know what that meant anymore? I sat up slowly, pulling the sheet tighter around me, my voice trembling. "Why, Liam? Why now? Why tonight? After everything?" He shook his head, standing abruptly and pacing toward the window. The city stretched out below us, bathed in gold and pale blue, like the whole world had started over while we were still stuck in yesterday. He pressed his hand to the glass, his shoulders rising and falling with each ragged breath. "Because last night, I realized something," he said softly. I waited, my heart in my throat. He turned to face me, his eyes shining in the morning light. I don't want to wake up tomorrow. If you're not there. Tears burned the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I needed to think. I needed air. I slipped out of bed, grabbing the oversized hotel robe and wrapping it around myself like armor. My bare feet padded softly across the hardwood floor as I moved toward him. He didn't move. He didn't reach for me. He just stood there, waiting, like he had the night before in the rain. I stopped just short of touching him, my voice barely more than a whisper. You don't even know me, Liam. His lips parted like he wanted to argue, but no words came. I turned away, crossing the room to where my dress still lay crumpled on the floor. I gathered it in my arms, clutching it to my chest like it could somehow protect me from the ache building in my heart. I need time, I whispered, my throat tight. I need to understand why I'm still here. Liam took a shaky step toward me, but I held up a hand, stopping him. Please, I said, my voice cracking. Let me think. He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable, but I saw the way his hands trembled at his sides. Without another word, I slipped into the bathroom, closing the door softly behind me. I leaned against it, pressing my forehead to the cool wood, trying to steady my breathing. Somewhere deep inside my robe pocket, I felt the folded edge of the letter I had hidden the night before. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out, staring at my mother's handwriting again. To Michael, Mason. The name hit me harder now than it had in the chapel. Mason. Liam. Mason. Was it just a coincidence? Or was this something more? I unfolded the letter with shaking hands, scanning the faded words. I'm sorry for what happened. I never meant to hurt you or your family. I hope one day you'll understand why I had to walk away. My breath caught. My mother had walked away from a Mason, from someone in Liam's family. The room spun. What if this marriage wasn't just about my father's debt? What if it was something older, something rooted in pain neither of us had been brave enough to face? I pressed the letter to my chest, tears slipping down my cheeks. I didn't have the answers yet, but I was starting to understand the question. And somehow, I knew it was going to change everything. The knock on the door came, softly at first. I thought maybe I had imagined it. I sat frozen on the edge of the bed, clutching the letter in my hands, the weight of it pressing against my chest like a stone I couldn't shake off. Another knock, louder this time. I glanced toward the bathroom door, expecting Liam to appear, but it remained closed. He had left me alone, like I had asked. Reluctantly, I stood and crossed the room, pulling the hotel robe tighter around me as I cracked the door open. A woman stood on the other side, tall, poised, older than me, but not by much. Her dark hair was twisted into an elegant knot at the nape of her neck, and her sharp eyes flicked over me with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. She wore red lipstick that somehow looked more like a threat than a choice. I had never seen her before. At least I didn't think I had. Emma Blair, she said smoothly, as if she were greeting an old friend. I blinked, clutching the door a little tighter. Who are you? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. My name is Lydia. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I had heard it once, whispered in passing at the estate. Lydia, the woman who used to work with my mother, the woman who had disappeared from our lives without explanation. Before I could speak, she leaned closer, lowering her voice to a chilling whisper. I believe you're wearing something that belongs to me. I froze, glancing down at the letter still clutched in my hand. Her smile widened. I thought so. My heart pounded in my chest. What do you want? Lydia sighed softly, as if I had asked the most exhausting question in the world. You really have no idea, do you? She murmured. I swallowed hard. What are you talking about? She leaned in closer, her voice like velvet laced with poison. Your mother, and Michael Mason. I felt the air leave my lungs, She nodded slowly, savoring every second of my confusion. She was in love with him once. Before she married your father. Before she ruined everything. My hands trembled. You're lying. But I knew she wasn't. Lydia tilted her head, her smile sharp as glass. You see, darling, this marriage of yours, it's not about debt. It never was. It's about revenge. About unfinished business. You're the perfect pawn in a game that started long before you were born. I shook my head, backing away from the door, but she took another step forward, pressing her palm flat against it before I could close it. You think Liam married you to save your family? She whispered, her eyes dark with something I couldn't mind. He married you to ruin you, to make your mother pay for walking away from his family, from him. I felt the blood drain from my face. It couldn't be true. It couldn't. Lydia leaned back, her expression satisfied. But don't worry, she added lightly. I'll give you a way out. I'll go to the press. I'll tell them everything. The deal. The debt. The real reason behind your picture-perfect wedding. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. Why? I whispered. What do you get from this? She smiled again, colder this time. Because I hate them both. Your mother. And Liam Mason. And just like that, she turned and walked away, leaving me trembling in the doorway. I waited until I was sure she was gone before closing the door with shaking hands. I sank to the floor, clutching the letter like it could somehow shield me from the truth that had just been poured into my lap. Was that why Liam had really married me? To finish what had started all those years ago? To make my mother suffer through me? I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And yet, I couldn't forget the way he had looked at me last night. The way his hands had trembled when he whispered, "Please don't go." Was it all a lie? Or was he just as lost in this as I was? The bathroom door creaked open, and I looked up to see Liam standing there, fully dressed, his eyes dark and searching. "Emma?" he said softly, stepping toward E. Me. What's wrong? I couldn't find the words. I could barely find the air in my lungs. But when I saw the worry flicker across his face, the way his shoulders tensed like he was bracing for a blow, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. He didn't know Lydia had come. He didn't know what she had told me, and that terrified me even more. I stood on shaking legs, clutching the letter like it might fall apart if I let go. "I need to leave," I whispered, my voice cracking. Liam's face fell, his jaw tightening as he took another step toward me. "Please don't," he murmured, his voice breaking. "Not like this. Not without letting me explain." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "I can't do this, Liam. Not if it's all been a lie." He flinched like I had slapped him. "It wasn't," he said softly. "It's not," but I didn't believe him. Not yet. And so I did the only thing I could. I walked away. I stayed away for 3 days. 3 days of wandering from cheap motel rooms to quiet cafes where no one knew my name. 3 days of sleepless nights with that letter pressed to my chest like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. I didn't answer Liam's calls. I couldn't. Because every time his name lit up my phone, Lydia's voice echoed louder in my mind. "He married you to ruin you." I wanted to believe it wasn't true. God, I wanted to believe. But how could I, when every step I took toward him felt like walking deeper into a trap I didn't even understand? On the 4th morning, I woke to a headline plastered across every newsstand on the block. CEO Liam Mason breaks. Silence. I married her because I love her. I stared at the bold letters, my breath catching in my throat. I grabbed the paper with shaking hands, reading every word like it might set me on fire. He hadn't denied the rumors. He hadn't tried to hide behind lawyers or publicists. He had faced them, alone. He stood in front of a wall of flashing cameras, jaw clenched, eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. The article quoted him word for word. Yes, Our marriage started as an arrangement. But I fell in love with her. And if that ruins me, so be it. I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears stinging my eyes. He'd taken every bullet, every whisper, every lie. And he hadn't once said my name with shame on his lips. I didn't know how my legs carried me back to the Mason building. I didn't remember the cab ride or the way the city blurred past my window. All I knew was that I was standing in front of the marble steps, staring up at the glass tower where Liam was probably still cleaning up the mess he had made for himself. For me. The receptionist recognized me immediately but didn't stop me. Maybe she'd seen the headline too. I rode the elevator in silence, clutching the crumpled newspaper in my hands like a lifeline. The doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the sleek penthouse floor. And there he was, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to me, his hands shoved into his pockets like he was holding himself together with sheer will. I stepped inside, the door sliding shut behind me with a quiet hiss. Liam didn't turn. Not right away. But I saw the way his shoulders tensed, like he felt me there before he let himself believe it. When he finally faced me, his gray eyes were rimmed with something I couldn't quite name. Fear, maybe. Or something even more fragile. He didn't speak. Neither did I. I just crossed the room, closing the distance between us with shaking steps until I was standing right in front of him. I held up the paper between us, my hands trembling. "Why?" I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. "Why would you do this?" Liam swallowed hard, his jaw tightening like the words physically hurt him. "Because it was the truth," he rasped. I felt my heart crack wide open, tears blurring my vision. "I don't understand," I choked out. "You could have denied it. You could have protected yourself. Why take the fall for me?" His voice broke, raw and desperate. "Because I was tired of lying." I flinched, the words slicing through. Me. He reached for me then, hesitating like he was afraid I might shatter beneath his touch. When I didn't pull away, his hands cupped my face, his thumbs brushing the tears from my cheeks. "Emma," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I started this for all the wrong reasons. I let my anger, my past, twist everything. But you changed me." I shook my head, my breath hitching. Lydia lied." He cut in, his grip tightening just enough to ground me. "Yes, our families have history. Yes, my father wanted revenge. But me?" He leaned his forehead against mine, his voice trembling like he was holding on by a thread. "I never wanted to hurt you." I pressed my palms to his chest, feeling the wild rhythm of his heartbeat beneath my touch. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" I whispered. His breath hitched, his voice barely holding steady. "Because I didn't know what was true anymore, until you ran." I felt the tears break free, slipping down my cheeks as I clung to him, my body shaking with the weight of everything I had tried to outrun. He held me tighter, like he was afraid I'd disappear again. "I'm sorry," he breathed, into my hair. "I'm so damn sorry." I pulled back just enough to look up at him, my vision blurry, but my heart pounding with something that felt dangerously close to hope. "I don't know if I can trust you," I whispered. "Not yet." Liam nodded slowly, his hands trembling against my skin. "Then I'll wait," he promised, his voice cracking. "I'll wait as long as it takes." And somehow, I believed him. The suitcase sat on the bed like a silent witness to the war waging in my heart. I had packed it twice already. Unpacked it just as many. Clothes folded and refolded. Zippers pulled shut only to be undone again. It was ridiculous, really. How I stood there, staring at that small, pathetic thing like it held all the answers I couldn't find in my own chest. Liam hadn't pushed. Not once. Since the press conference, since the trembling words he had spoken with his arms wrapped around me, he had given me nothing but space. No late-night knocks on my door. No pleading calls. No desperate declarations. Just Space, and somehow that terrified me more than anything else, because I knew what it meant. He was letting me go. For the first time, Liam Mason, the man who could have bought and sold empires, was letting me choose, and I didn't know how to take that kind of freedom. Stood by the window, my hand pressed flat to the cool glass as the city moved below me, alive and oblivious to the storm unraveling inside my soul. The letter sat on the nightstand, the one from my mother to Michael Mason. I had read it 100 times, memorized every word, every crack in the ink. And still, it left me with more questions than answers. Why had she walked away from the man she once loved? Why had she married my father instead? Was that why Liam had been so angry? Was I just collateral damage in a game they started long before I was even born? I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead to the glass, the ache in my chest spreading until it burned. And then I heard it. A knock. Soft. Hesitant. I turned, my breath catching in my throat. Liam stood in the doorway. No suit, no armor, just him. Barefoot. In jeans and a worn gray t-shirt that made him look almost human. His hands were shoved deep into his pockets, his shoulders tense like he was bracing for whatever came next. I swallowed hard, my voice barely more than a whisper. I thought, "You were giving me space." He nodded slowly, taking one cautious step inside. "I was," he murmured. "But I couldn't. Not tonight. Not when I saw you packing." My throat tightened. I turned away, staring back out the window, afraid that if I looked at him too long, I might fall apart. Liam's voice was softer this time. "Where are you going?" I closed my eyes, fighting the tears I hadn't earned the right to cry. "I don't know," I whispered. I can't breathe in this place anymore." I felt him move behind me, not touching, but close enough that the air shifted. "And if I asked you to stay," he said quietly. I turned, finally facing him, the words breaking free before I could stop them. "Why?" I choked out. "So you can keep proving to the world that I'm yours?" His face crumbled, like I'd ripped something straight from his chest. "No," he whispered, his voice raw and shaking. "So I can finally prove that I'm yours." I felt the air leave my lungs, my knees threatening to buckle beneath me. He stepped closer, slowly sinking to the floor in front of me. On his knees. Liam Mason. On his knees. He reached for my hands, holding them so gently it nearly shattered me. "No more contracts. No more debts. No more games," he breathed, his voice cracking. "Just me. Just you. And whatever comes after." Tears blurred my vision, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might drown out every other sound in the world. He looked up at me, his gray eyes shimmering in the soft light. "I don't deserve you," he whispered, "but I want you. More than I've ever wanted anything in my life." I sank to my knees in front of him, cupping his face in my trembling hands. "I don't want to be your prisoner, Liam," I breathed, my voice breaking. "I want to be your choice." He leaned into my touch, his breath hitching. "You already are," he whispered, like it was the only truth he had left to give. I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead to his, feeling the tears slip down my cheeks. And, for the first time since this all began, I believed him. I let the suitcase fall from my hands, forgotten. I didn't need it anymore. Because I wasn't going anywhere. Not tonight. Not ever. It had been months since that night. Months since I'd let the suitcase fall and wrap my arms around the only man I never thought I'd choose. And now here we were. Not in a glass tower. Not in a cold, gilded estate. But here. On the porch of a small cottage by the lake, where the air smelled of pine and morning rain, and the only thing louder than the wind in the trees was the soft bubbling of the kettle inside. I stood barefoot, on the old wooden planks, wrapped in Liam's sweater, watching the sunrise stretch long golden fingers across the water. It wasn't perfect. We weren't perfect. But somehow, it was everything I never knew I wanted. I heard the soft creak of the door behind me, felt his arms slide around my waist, pulling me gently back against his chest. Liam pressed a kiss to the top of my head, his voice warm and low. "You're up early," he murmured. I leaned into him, closing my eyes as the steady beat of his heart settled me in ways I still didn't fully understand. "Couldn't sleep," I whispered. He chuckled softly, the sound rumbling against my back. "Thinking about running again?" he teased. But there was no fear in his voice. Only something softer. Something certain. I turned in his arms, looking up into the face that had once terrified me. The face I now knew better than my own. "No," I breathed. "Not anymore." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face, his thumb tracing the curve of my jaw like he was memorizing me all over again. "Good," he whispered, leaning in to press his forehead to mine. "Because I don't think I could stand to watch you walk away twice." I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer, breathing him in like I was still afraid he might slip away. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" I murmured. He nodded, his lips brushing mine. "We already are." The kettle whistled softly from the kitchen, but neither of us moved. Not yet. I pressed my hand to his chest, feeling the steady thrum beneath my palm. "I never thought I'd find this with you," I whispered. He closed his eyes, holding me tighter. "Me neither," he breathed. "But you're my home now, Emma." And somehow, I knew he meant it. Later that morning, we sat at the small table by the window, 2 chipped mugs between us. Steam curled into the sunlight, filling the room with the rich, familiar scent of coffee and something softer. Hope. Liam reached for my hand, lacing his fingers with mine, his thumb brushing lazy circles against my skin. "Your mother would have loved this place," he said softly, his voice carrying something I couldn't quite name. I smiled, swallowing the lump in my throat. "She always wanted a quiet life," I whispered, away from the noise, the weight of it all. He nodded, staring out at the lake, his expression distant but full. "I think she'd be proud of you," he murmured. I squeezed his hand, the tears prickling the corners of my eyes. "I hope so," I whispered. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that didn't ache anymore, the kind that felt like peace. And when I finally leaned into him, resting my head on his shoulder, I knew the truth I'd been too afraid to speak. He wasn't the man who had taken everything from me. He was the man who had given me the chance to take it back. My life, my voice, my heart. I turned my face toward his neck, breathing in the steady, quiet rhythm of this new life we'd built together. And in that soft, golden morning light, I whispered the words I never thought I'd say. "You're my home too." Liam turned, cupping my face in his hands, his eyes shining with something deeper than I'd ever seen before. "Mine forever," he whispered, sealing the vow with a kiss that tasted of coffee, sunlight, and everything we had fought so hard to find. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, we had finally come home. Together. If this story touched your heart in any way, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and we'd love to have you here for more emotional journeys like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.